60s scoop was taking Native children out of their homes and placing them in the Caucasian home. So it's not a residential school under a Catholic church, under religion, which I know everybody just rails against, and I get it, I understand.
Mhm.
But, so now I'm in every home that I was in was all Caucasian. None of it was First Nation. I was not raised in my traditional teachings. I have little bits and pieces that every time I go visit family, I hear a little bit more. So I'm pretty much whitewashed. Apple is what they call you, red on the outside, white on the inside. And that's what the whole 60s scoop was meant to do, take the Indian out of the Indian.
Welcome to the Fearless Living Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Fearless Living Podcast. Today, I have Marcella with me. Marcella is an Indigenous mother to three beautiful adult daughters, and she is also a grandma, or Lola, as she is called in her ancestral language, to five amazingly wonderful grandchildren. Marcella is an activist, leader, national leadership trainer, event planner, public speaker, and she was also an independent candidate in the 2020 provincial elections and a federal candidate under the PPC party in 2021. She ran against Jagmeet Singh. I wish you won. Uh,
I do too.
and that's coming from someone who used to vote NDP. Okay.
Got
Um,
it.
right? Marcella loves nature and has recently learned how to ride a motorcycle, play a bass guitar, and shoot a gun, which shows how awesome she is. She has strong, because most people don't like try to, tick off the bucket list.
Right?
A lot of us just go through life, but I started doing that shit a few years ago too. So whenever I see someone else doing it, I have respect. Um, Marcella has strong views on many topics, including relationships, but she shows the utmost respect and kindness towards others, whether they agree with her or not, which is why I've invited her onto my podcast. Thank you, Marcella, for being here.
Aw, thank you so much. I feel so privileged to be here. And I was just wowed that you reached out and asked me. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. So to start off, let's let our audience get to know you a little bit. And could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, being Indigenous, I'm actually a 60s scoop survivor. I was raised by the province. They were my parents from the time I was 7, and I aged out at 18. I've had a lot of diversity in my life, a lot of trials, a lot of trauma, and a lot of working it through. Um, and I think that everything that has happened to me in my childhood and my teen years, and even my adult years, have formed me into the person that I have become. It's given me a lot of different insight to take all those trauma things that happened in my childhood and to put it into a positive aspect to be able to run this race of life with dignity and respecting and valuing who I am and what I bring to the table, and recognizing that everything that I am and everybody that is around me, my life touches them in good and negative ways. And that's not saying I'm a perfect person because I am far from perfect,
Mhm.
but I'm being perfected. And so that's where I'm at. I'm an adult now. I have 3 adult children, and like you said, I have 5 grandchildren. And Lola is I when my oldest granddaughter was born, she's graduating this year. Um, when she was born, I'm like, okay, yeah, I was 36 years old. Okay. My daughter had her when she was 17. I had my daughter when I was 18. And so, mom young, and then she's a mom young. And now I'm a grandma at 36. And I'm like, no, 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 we're not getting called grandma. It's Lola. And Lola is
Oh, so
actually,
it's not your language?
yeah, Lola is actually Filipino for grandma. And I just
Oh,
thought
okay.
Lola
So
was
it's
so
not
excited.
your ancestral language.
Mine, but
Okay.
still good. So I loved it. So I'm Lola. And I just on that remark there, when we had this big event with the whole truckers convoy, there was a huge rally that happened at the border, the truck crossing. And I had this picture of me holding the flag here. and my daughter showed it to her son, and I am known as Freedom Lola.
That is so cool. I love it.
Yeah,
Freedom
I love
Lola.
it.
Oh my gosh, that should be a tagline.
So, I worked for the provincial government. I've been a managing broker in real estate. I I've always been on the learning end. I've done a lot of leadership. I've written a book on leadership training for churches, and that's gone across the U.S. and Canada. I'm really just a person, but I'm willing to just share what I can and help other people in other ways. And you know, I struggle, but I get back up, and you just got to keep moving forward. I don't like to dwell on the past and the negatives. I want it to be the springboard that catapults me, doing things that are positive and helping and working through my own issues. So it's life. And one comment on that, I heard it. Uh, Candace Owen, she was at some rally somewhere, and she said, "Life is hard, man. Get a helmet." And I'm walking the other day, and I'm thinking, "Yeah, life is hard. I need a helmet."
So true. Can you, I mean, that's really remarkable that you had the kind of upbringing that you did, and yet you've accomplished so much. Can you share a little bit of some of the hardships that you've experienced and how you were able to uh, make these go, like what led to you feeling and being strong enough after everything you've been through to set these goals and to get yourself out there? I'm curious.
um, you know, I'm not one person to sit down and not do anything. I strive for things. I work towards goals. And I think it was probably when I became a mom. My ex cheated on me, like her dad, and I was 18, 19 years old at the time, and that was hard. I come right out of government care, and I had some beautiful foster families, actually one, and they were best for me. And I lived in Point Grey in Vancouver. They traveled us. The whole family are all educated. My mom and dad were just very hardworking people. They're from Holland. They're Dutch, and they just instilled some really good values, work ethic in me, and just encouragement. And when I got out on my own, and now I'm this single mom, I'm like, well, I got to do something with my life. I can't just sit around. So I was working full time, flipping burgers down at the Trade and Convention Center, and I was attending a program, Urban Images for Native Women, and it was just your kickstart to start a very basic office job. And so I did that, and working full time, being a single parent, you 5.25 an hour, okay, not a whole heck of a lot of money to live on. And so I was topped up by welfare. I had daycare subsidy. I just wasn't content to be a welfare mom for the rest of my life. I am not lazy, and I want the best life for my daughter. So I did all of these things, and I took some more education after that. I met my husband in 1994, and we got married in 96. We had two girls. And, I lived through addiction to cocaine, to smoking, to drinking, and going to the bars, and just all that stuff. But it really didn't lead me anywhere on a good path.
Mhm.
And really, I hated the cocaine use because I would get panic attacks.
Mhm.
And twice I was taken to the emergency by ambulance because I was just so whacked out. And those were the times that my oldest daughter was at her dad's house.
Mhm.
And so, my he's now my ex-husband. Um, he was churched, and I grew up in a churched home. So I had
What do
this
you mean by churched? Can you
so
explain?
churched is somebody that goes to church, has been growing up in the church, and is their lifestyle. And I had that in my teen years, even though I fought against it because you're formative, and just because your parents want you to do something doesn't mean you should. And my kids fought against it as well because they were raised in the church, but they were just so overcome by things that were happening around them, and they really didn't want to go to church. But being church mom, You're in my house, you're going to church. So they have some church trauma, and we laugh about it and we talk about it to this day. Um, and they have to make that up in their own mind, but when you're in your house and you're raising your kids, you think these things are best for them and you want what's best for your kids. But so that's
And
what I say,
also, we started parenting when we were a lot younger, and
right?
that's when we make most of our mistakes. Like my oldest is the one who I yelled at and,
Mhm.
shamed and oh,
Mhm.
I just cringe when I remember what kind of mother I was until I changed. But it's so we just usually do exactly what our parents did. So I think
Right?
that that's fortunate that you had a really good foster home. It sounds
Oh,
like one
yeah.
in particular, and that helped you to feel strong enough or have that kind of basis or example. I think it's so important. We don't have healthy role models in our lives, most of
Ah,
us.
yeah.
And so, regardless of where we grow up, if we don't have healthy role models, it's hard to, and then trying to be a healthy role model for our children when we're also struggling with our own issues like addiction
Right?
or even just substance abuse. Some people
Right?
just go through their periods of time where they abuse substances, but aren't on like necessarily a lifelong addictive path. But
Right.
yeah, it all happens when our kids are young. Then we become adults, and now we're like, oh shit, I
Oh,
can't believe
yeah.
the stuff I did.
Oh, yeah. I'm there. And I was saying to my oldest daughter, we took a trip down to Seattle last weekend. Just dealing with some issues behind the scenes and just talking to her. I said, I apologize to her because she was my oldest, and being a single mom and being 18, I'm not an adult. I haven't had any chance to live an adult life.
Mhm.
I didn't get my partying out. I didn't do my education. Suddenly I'm this mom and I'm taking on this huge adult role, and it just flipped my world upside down. And so I had to apologize because I look back and just some of the things that I did in my own stupidity and immaturity as a mom.
Me too.
I said to her, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
We had some hard life, and nobody gave me a book that taught me how to be a good parent.
Mhm.
And, my mom passed away when I was 15. I was in government care, and my birth father, I haven't seen since I was 5. My family has been we've had some residential schooling in my family history.
Mhm.
My older siblings have all lived on the reserve. I have never lived on the reserved. I've been called a wagon burner because I grew up in Point Grey, which is a very traditional Caucasian neighborhood at that time in the 80s. And I got mocked, I got teased. So I dealt with that.
Mhm.
And, thinking, gosh, am I really just not this worthy person? Why
Mhm.
am I being called these things? And trying not to let it get into your mind and just to rise above that. And I'm precious. I'm valuable. I'm not who you think I am. I am so much more, and I have so much potential. And you got to get yourself there. And even in the past 4 years, it's been a trial. And just remembering who you are and knowing that you have value in this world. You have so much worth. And there are so many people around us and in our families and in our communities and our connections that we impact with
Yes.
our own being. And we can do it in a good way, we can do it in a negative way, and we have this ability to influence. And I think those are some of the things that drive me in doing what I do in all my education, and just getting to where I am today. It's been a struggle. It hasn't been an easy path. And I've been through breakup as a young single mom. I've been through a divorce as a 50-year-old mother and grandmother. And I know what it's like, and not every day is easy. And some are absolutely beautiful, but I cherish the good things, and I look at the bad things and I'm like, okay, they didn't break me. They're making me. They're
Mhm.
actually giving me lessons in life that are like these stepping stones, and I can just keep on walking. Just don't stay back where you are. Move forward. And, the other thing is, in the past 4 years, I've had so many bricks thrown at me because of what I stand for. I just want to take those bricks. You're just building that wall for me. And I can look at that and go, yeah, I conquered that. Oh, look at that one. Remember that? Yeah. You're just making this wall that it's going to be beautiful. I'm going to look back on it and say, I've been there and here I am today. I'm still
Mhm.
standing.
It's amazing how strong you find out that you are when you face really difficult challenges. If you get through it with a good attitude, then you know you're fucking strong.
Yeah.
That's so true, right?
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
if you get through it and you're devastated and you're destroyed, then you need to recognize or find your strength, I think, because who wants to live like that? You don't want to live like a victim. You don't want to live a life allowing whoever hurt you to have that much power over you that you're hurt for the rest of your life.
That's exactly it. And one of the things I didn't share here, and you'd ask me, what have I dealt with? I've been emotionally, physically, and sexually abused as a child and while I was in government care. So these are some of the things that I have dealt with. And I recognize that my behavior in my teen years, being promiscuous, comes out of that childhood trauma. And it took me as an adult to look back and see that I understand why those behaviors came out in me. And I wasn't understanding how to deal with these. I never got counseling as a child. The government never looked after me in that regard. And the 60s scoop is a chunk of change because you can never compensate financially what people endure as abusive. It won't ever cover me to grow past that. It's here in the back of my mind, but it doesn't drive me and it doesn't keep me there under the negativity. Um,
It teaches you a lot, though, right?
oh, does it
Can,
ever?
can you explain what the 60s scoop is for people who don't know?
Okay, so you know what residential schools are when I took the First Nation people out, put them in the schools, we're going to whitewash them for lack of terminology. 60s scoop is the same thing. They just ripped me from my mother's arms when I was 6 years old. And I just remember the social worker throwing us in the back of the car, get in there, stop screaming, stop crying, to watching my mother melting down on the sidewalk crying because her kids were being taken from her. And so
And
60s.
this happened to a lot of people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I can't even tell you how many people it's happened to. Um, but so I have four of us. So I have a brother who's a year and a day older than me. I have one, this is me, and then I have a brother who's 2.5 years younger, and then I have a younger brother who's I think 6 years younger than me. And we were all taken. My youngest brother was fetal alcohol syndrome because my mother was an alcoholic. And so that was one of the reasons why we were removed. We had no food in the house because it was more important to have the alcohol. And so he was born fetal alcohol syndrome, and he was put up for adoption, and he was put into a wonderful home. And then they moved him to Florida, and I didn't see him from the time I was 5 years old until I was maybe 23, 24.
Wow.
And so it was so wonderful to have him back. And now my brother, who's just below me in age, he's actually, I'm going to be going to see him. He's got cancer and they don't give him much time. He's day 5 without eating. And so I'm preparing Ashley to head up there. And then my other brother, Warren, because of what we endured in our traumatized childhood, he's an alcoholic. And my brother that's dying, he's also an alcoholic. And I could have been that alcoholic, but I had a life change when I was 26 years old and I started going to church, and it just reset my feet on a better path. But 60s Scoop was taking Native children out of their homes and placing them in the Caucasian home. So it's not a residential school under a Catholic church, under religion, which I know everybody just rails against, and I get it, I understand.
Mhm.
But, so now I'm in every home that I was in was all Caucasian, none of it was First Nation. I was not raised in my traditional teachings. I have little bits and pieces that every time I go visit family, I hear a little bit more. So I'm pretty much whitewashed. Apple is what they call you, red on the outside, white on the inside. And that's what the whole 60s scoop was meant to do, take the Indian out of the Indian. I'm status. I'm still Indian. They'll never take it out of me by birth. But I have this disconnection from my heritage and my roots because of what they did. And so that's what the 60s scoop has done to people. And it's obviously been very traumatizing for some because we endured neglect and abuse even in these foster homes. And we
Mhm.
still see it today.
For sure. Because I think what happens, and I'm indigenous as well,
Awesome.
and I have grandparents and great grandparents who were affected by residential schools and in residential schools, and the white people in my family are all people of mostly like Irish descent and whatnot, so also persecuted peoples. And I believe that persecution, because what they say in quantum mechanics is that everything is impacted by energy, which is something
Hmm.
we were kind of talking about earlier. And like our cells, even what happens to ourselves, how they evolve is that they respond to the environment, to their,
Absolutely.
it's actually to their perception of the environment.
Hmm.
And human beings are just bigger sizes of cells because we're made up of cells and we have
Right.
all the same features as cells, and so we respond to our environment. And so a trauma that you or I experience in our lives can actually change the way we act, the way we think, everything about us, and it will affect our children genetically and environmentally to
Hmm.
become like us in that way. And that it's all about like the energy and the perception of the energy, and so anyway, it's generational. So
Yes.
and then just if you think just common sense and you don't get all into the energy stuff,
Hmm.
obviously when you rip children out of homes and take children away from parents, then you're going to have people that don't know how to parent
Yep.
because they didn't get to parent their children or they didn't have loving parents. And then it's a vicious cycle, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
we learn from our parents. Like I always thought it was normal to yell at people, tell people your horrible business, complain about money. There's so many things that I don't do anymore, but I thought were completely normal because of my upbringing.
Hmm.
And so then taking all of that on, then I recycle it in my life. I create that in my life. And then my life becomes the same as it was when I was a child. Unless I stop, something happens, or I find a reason or learn something and I decide to make a change and stop that cycle, right?
And that's it. That's it. You can carry on that family tradition, that
Mhm.
vicious cycle, or you can be the one that gets out of that hamster wheel and says, no, not anymore. And my children didn't grow up around alcohol. They didn't grow up around smoking. They didn't grow up around drugs. Um, because I was in church. My oldest daughter had that in her life for a little while until I started going to church. And I didn't want my children growing up in the same atmosphere that I had experienced growing up at home as a young child. And and that was me looking back going, "Yep, my children are gonna stay in my home. They're not gonna be put into foster care. I'm gonna look after my kids the best way that I know how." And that was me saying, "They're not gonna have the same childhood that I had." My kids weren't even allowed to watch TV, okay? And when you look at some of the programming that is out there, I am so thankful my children didn't have that programming. And, and they were mad because they couldn't have a cell phone, but you could access so much stuff on the internet on your phone. So we didn't put data on the phone. And they hated it that I was such a no mom that your phone has to be in the bedroom, my bedroom at 9 o'clock, because you're not going to sit on your phone all night long, messaging and texting everybody. I was that no mean mom.
Mhm.
But in saying that and in doing that, one of my daughters is here. I'm in her home, and one of the things I hope that they understand is that the mean parent that I was actually setting boundaries to allow my children to know that they are loved and cared about. And I
Mhm.
wanted to protect my kids from the ugliness that permeates this world. And whether they understand that or know that to this day, I hope that one day they'll recognize and say, Mom loved me.
Yes, that's very good. My son, because we are parents of the first generation of children with technology
Hmm.
at their fingertips.
Yeah.
And my son said that he will restrict the time that his children have on technology because I didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I never had TV. I haven't had TV. I shouldn't say never, but I haven't had it since 2010.
Yeah.
And or even maybe sooner. The only time I had it was when I was in when I was like with my husband,
Yeah.
who I am divorced from now. But I didn't like TV because I learned about it in college about how it's all agenda driven and whatnot.
100%.
And then when I started watching it after I learned all that, then I was always like skeptical of everything I saw and like, I wonder why they ran that article and who does that benefit? And you know
Right?
what I mean?
That's good.
Yeah. So, and then I had a pharmaceutical injury in 2010 and started to learn even more about how we're really like, brainwashed about pharmaceuticals in the
Oh,
media
yes.
or on regular television. And so I just didn't want my children to have a television at all. But I never really restricted them from technology because I thought this is the new world. This is the new thing. They need to know how to do it. They need to know how to use it. And then for a number of years, I was so unwell that it was a relief to me that they would spend time on their technology. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
But
No.
I was just so sick that I couldn't be the mother that I wanted to be. And
Hmm.
really wanted them to just stop talking to me or stop asking for things and let me rest for a
Yeah.
little while or whatever. And so I do feel like they had too much time on technology. But I also didn't realize that, you know, my bad behavior in that way taught my son how he didn't want to be as a parent. And that's what happens.
But that's a good thing. You see, he
Mhm.
acknowledged that, and you
Mhm.
think you're being a bad mom. And even though we see ourselves as doing these bad things, and there's a lesson in that, and he sees it. So you're not a bad mom. You were doing what you thought was best in the situation that you were in. And you have to look at that as, hey, my son is making decisions that are healthy because he sees this is a positive. It's not a bad thing. I'm
Yeah.
telling you
I
right
hear
now,
what
it's a
you're
positive
saying.
thing.
That is.
It's a positive thing.
I'm lucky. I
Mindset.
think like you've probably done the same thing because you seem really close to your daughters. Um, you have all daughters, right?
I have all girls.
Yeah. But I raised my kids with a lot of understanding and loving conversation and not getting mad at them when they made mistakes or when they had struggles, purposely to create a relationship with them that they could come to me with anything. And also because I had a fear that one day when they found out that I worked in the adult entertainment industry, that they wouldn't love me anymore. So I wanted to
Uh,
make sure that we had such a good relationship that when they really understood what all of that meant, that they would still feel like they knew me.
mhm.
And
Oh,
so
that's good.
so it was so important to me, and I think that's probably the best thing that I did as a mother was
Yeah.
to be my kids' friends. I
Yeah.
also was their mother, like
Right.
like I take the phone away at 9 o'clock, of course. But I don't, I don't, I'm not authoritarian. I discuss everything with them. I let them make the majority of their own decisions, in all honesty. And a part of that comes from the fact that my mother was extremely controlling, didn't
Mhm.
want me to make any of my own decisions. And so when I became 18, I kind of went off the rails. And it was like, you always told me, Mom, when I'm 18, I can make my own decisions. And until then, I have to do what you say. So when I turned 18, I was like, now
Gosh.
is my time. And I made so many bad decisions after that
Oh,
because
yeah.
I hadn't really had a chance to learn how to make bad decisions or how to make decisions and learn from them,
Yeah.
because my mother had made every decision for me. So
Yeah.
yeah, it
I've
was a
been
big
there.
shock. So that was
Right
another
there.
thing. I wanted my kids to learn how to make their own decisions because I hadn't really been given that, you know. It's
Yeah.
so funny how we take the good and we try to instill that as parents, and then we take the bad and we try to do the opposite. But what
Right.
happens a lot of the time is we just do the same thing. Like I said, I would never date an alcoholic. I would never give my children alcoholics for fathers. And I'm not saying they're extreme alcoholics, but they have drinking problems.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this shit happens.
Oh, shit
Like we,
happens.
we
It's life.
repeat we repeat it even if we don't want to sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. And I've been that tyrannical mother. I've been there. And yeah, I just who was I? Who was I? And I talk to my girls and they make fun of me a lot. And because I was church girl, I was church mama.
Hmm.
And just very, very strict by the book. And really it didn't allow my kids the opportunity to experience this world. And really, I was trying to shield them from it because for myself, even now as an adult, I'm just so horrified. I'm mortified. I'm disgusted. I'm sickened by some of the things we have happening in this world. And looking back, it's like you want to put your foot down because you want to protect your kids from what's happening. But I have to say, in the past 10 years, since they've all, they're all over 18 now, this world is crumbling so quickly. It is so morose. Literally, some of the things that happen around me, I just want to vomit. It actually makes me that sick. And we have to live in it, and we have to choose healthy boundaries and healthy things for ourselves to go about our day. But I wanted to just go back. You were talking about leaving your home at 18.
Hmm.
When I was 17, I moved out from my foster home. I wasn't on a approved leave. I was AWOL according to the government, and I was hanging out with my friends at the beach all summer long. I just didn't feel like going home. I was enjoying the party, and this is part of my learning as a teen. Looking back at my younger childhood and the things I endured, it was just all that behavior. And because I was in a Christian home, I'm breaking the boundaries here. You're not telling me that I can't go out with my friends on a Friday night. I'm just going to sneak out my bedroom window or the bathroom window when you're sleeping, and I did. And, then I just finally took off. I was 17. I was couch surfing at 17. And, you know, and then I started dating the dad of my oldest daughter, and we were high school infatuated people with one another. And, anyway, so, now I'm this mom, and I went back to a group home, and, just until I turned 18, and then the government helped set me up. So, at that time, I had this amazing social worker, and she actually saw the potential that I had, and, she was concerned for me because I'm 18, I'm pregnant, and I'm a government kid.
Hmm.
What hope do I have, right? Because when you look at the statistics of children that grow up in foster care, they're not good. And in particularly, they're sad, even more so with the indigenous children. So at that time, I was pregnant and she had taken me shopping to get a whole bunch of clothes that would help fit me with my pregnant body. And she was pregnant at the same time. Now, as my life went on, at 30 years old, I got a job as an office assistant working for the Ministry of Children and Family Development, the very same government that ripped me from my mother's arms at 5 years old. And actually, it was the second office I went to work in. I'm going, oh, just before I started working there, I had ordered my child and care file. I wanted to see all the details and everything they had on my birth records. I wanted to know who my birth dad was because I went by a completely different last name. It's not Desjarlais. It is something different, right? And so I got all that information. I saw the write-ups on me and all the reports that they have to do. And that social worker I had when I was 18 years old saw my potential, and she said, "I'm concerned about where she's at, but I have really big hope for her." And so when I got into the second government office, I'm looking at the names on the board, and I keep getting telephone calls for this lady. And I know that name. I know that name. And then I went home and I looked in my file and I found her. She was my social worker when I was 18 years old. And I went home and I found a picture of me as a teenager when she was my worker. And I came into work one day and she finally came into the office because she'd been working out of the office. And I said, Laura, do you have a moment? She had no idea who I was.
Oh my
And
God, I'm getting
she said,
goosebumps.
sure. And I laid the pictures out on the desk in front of her. She was just, oh my God, you turned out. Oh, it was just like the most amazing moment, right?
Oh,
And and we just connected after that. And we just had so many talks in her office on her breaks. And then if oh gosh, maybe about 8 years, 9 years later, her daughter starts working in the same ministry. And guess who gets to train her?
nice.
She was the daughter that my social worker was pregnant when I was 18. And
Wow.
so it was just this amazing thing. And I used to sit with
Circle of
her,
life.
right? It is. It's huge. And I used to sit with her and I joke about, yeah, I did this and I did that. And she goes, "You're the reason mom wouldn't let me do anything." And we would just laugh about it, right? But what a really amazing thing. And when I was still working in the government and I was just getting ready to resign because I was working towards a college degree, Bachelor of Business Administration, because I was already working in real estate. I was a licensed realtor, but also working on my broker's license. I had goals. I had goals to open my own real estate brokerage. But anyway, so I kept in contact with her. And, I graduated college at 46 years old. I was valedictorian. I started a whole bunch of healthy living programs, and we had a lot of international students. I took them places around BC doing activities they've never done. We started a hiking group on Saturdays. We had a running club. And this is me. They're all in their 20s, and I'm like this 45-year-old woman. And just it's like these were all my little duckling babies following me along. It's where life led me, right? So anyway,
You're
I
a
got
natural leader, Marcella. You're
thanks. Thank
definitely
you.
a natural leader.
Thank you.
I noticed that you have a huge following online, and I would love to hear about how that what do you think is the reason people are so in love with you or love you so much, or like what about you resonates with people so much? Because, and I ask for two reasons: one, because I'm curious, and two, because I'm trying to build a following.
Number one, be real, be genuine, be vulnerable, and don't be embarrassed of the things you say. Um, if you miss up on a word, say it over and over again until you get it. It just shows people you're human. And like I do my lives and I mispronounce words and wait a second. I'll laugh at yourself. It's okay to laugh at yourself. We're human. And I think that's one of the things is and being positive and being able to take negative and turn it into positive, because I want you to know your social media presence is your sphere of influence, okay? You draw people to you by who you are and you repel people from you by who you are. If you're going to draw people to you, you have to be that person that is able to, and diplomatic isn't the word I really want to use, but you've got to be that person who can say, I understand it from this point of view, and I see it from this point of view. This is where I'm at. And I'm not negating that what you say has no relevance. And I see how this is relevant. It's being that person that can take the step back and allow others to see and feel and think differently than yourself without stomping on them.
Without taking it
No,
personally.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
I know
let
that's
me
a
tell
huge
you,
problem.
it's hard because you know what? When people come at you and shred you on social media, it's hard to not take it personally because they are coming after you. And let me tell you, the past 4 years, I have had it hard. I've had it in the media, I've had it on social media, and I've had it behind the scenes. And trying not to let it drag you down is very important. What other people think of you is none of your business. It's the biggest peace lesson you'll ever have because I look at it this way. How people view me is not a reflection of me. It's a reflection of their mindset and their heart. And whatever they say about me comes out of that heart. And what it really shows me is not anything about me, but it shows me their character and in their integrity. And when I look at it that way, it can't bring me down to the negative level that they want me to go.
That's a
That's
really
one
good way to
that's
do
that's
it.
one thing. And that's how I've been here, like, this past 2 weeks, I cannot tell you how much negativity I have seen behind the scenes, and my name has been dragged through the mud because of association.
Wow.
And I like to
Well,
address
I
things.
hope that doesn't happen because you came on my
Oh
podcast.
gosh, no. Gosh, no. You know what? I'm so excited to be here because this is a whole thing.
Mhm.
Your influence, you can touch so many lives with so many different things. And just being real and sharing your experiences with other people, but being that vulnerable and honest person that can say that I am not everything. I am not this big person in the sky. I am not above anybody else. I don't elevate myself above anybody else, and I'm not under anybody else. I'm just right here.
We're
And
equal.
right, you're not better than me. I'm not better than you. I'm not going to tear you down. I would rather support, share, and build others up and watch them grow. Because looking back, I'm going to say, you know what? I had input in that. Look at how awesome they are. And sometimes you're that helping hand that just pulls somebody up and you're just passing by.
Yeah.
You're touching a life. Keeping those things in mind is what helps you just to continue to be who you are.
I think how you handle hate as well, like hatred, how you handle it, because you don't lash out, you don't go silent,
No,
you don't withdraw. So you don't freeze, and you
no,
don't flee, but you also don't fight. You
no.
just you just let it go, right? Is that what you do? Like for me, what I do with hate, because I get it a lot too. I get
Mhm,
it as I get called an anti-vaxxer because I didn't get the jab, and
mhm,
I get stupid whore because I work in the
mhm.
adult entertainment industry, and being both, ooh.
Yeah,
But yeah, like I've had a lot of hate. I'm used to it now. It doesn't really bother me. But
yeah.
when it did bother me, or when it does occasionally still bother me, I ask myself, did I do something to hurt this person, or did I do something to deserve this behavior? Because maybe I did. And if I did, then I owe somebody an apology,
Mhm,
you know? Or like, and I don't think anyone deserves that kind of behavior, but I also respect that people lash out in anger and pain,
mhm.
and like you said, it's a reflection of where their head is at and where
Yes.
their heart is at. And I love how you put that. That's so true. But sometimes someone might be lashing out for a good reason.
Mhm,
And so I ask myself, did I do something? And then if I didn't do anything deliberately or intentionally to hurt them,
mhm.
then I just give myself off the hook. And I think it's their responsibility to let me know if I did something that accidentally hurt them, because
Right?
I can't read their freaking mind.
No.
And so if they don't confront me and tell me what I've done, and I can't think of anything that I've done,
Mhm.
or they're a stranger and I've clearly never done anything,
Yeah,
then I'm off the hook. I'm not worried about it. I let that shit go. That's their baggage. That's their
yes.
problem. That's their issue.
100%.
And they're probably doing it to a lot more people than just me, because that's how
Mhm.
hateful people are. And like I look at like someone like me or like you, and we would never spend our time going around shit talking and criticizing people. We would never do that. And so I think, well, the kind of people I want to attract are people like me who don't shit talk people. So I'm just going
Good.
to ignore those haters,
Yeah,
and then and keep vibing off the lovers.
there you
You
go. I like it. I
know?
like it. And, you know, you said something there just a minute ago, and I had the thought about the haters. So one of the ways that I deal with that is and I have done this, and I have done it on social media because I get screenshots sent to me, and they knock me down. They knock the wind out of me. I'm like, where did that come from?
Mhm.
Why? Why are they suddenly just coming off? People will always attack you if you're in a position of leadership, if you have a good following, if they have jealousy of what you're doing, and they want to be doing what you're doing, and they're doing less than they can. I want to let those people know that they have those same opportunities that I do. And rather than tearing people down, hop to it. You
Yes.
have an ability to do something far greater than shred people. And so there's been times where I've done a live, and it's so funny. And I have to keep going back to this past 4 years because it's been life changing for the world, not just in our local area.
Mhm.
But I have had so many people coming at me and trying to tear me down. And I look at my lives and I look at some of the postings that I've done, and history repeats itself because even in my own speaking and addressing issues and throwing up a post, I'll go back in my memories and I'll have said the same thing 2 years ago, almost to the day. My
Yes.
message hasn't changed. There's consistency in
Mhm.
who I am, and it doesn't matter how often you attack me. I'm not going to cave and change who I am to please everybody because I won't ever. And I'm not going to put myself under that pressure. I'm just going to keep being me. Now, the other thing that I have done is I address the behavior. I don't talk about the person. I don't name their names. I address the behavior.
Mhm.
And that's what people need to understand. And the people that are in our sphere of influence and that are with us or even against us, um, we're all dealing with our own situations behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Social media, we only put the best out there that we want to. We
Or
want
the worst.
everybody to think, right?
Yeah.
But there are some people that throw all their dirty laundry,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of hurting people,
Oh
and
God.
hurt people hurt people. So
Mhm.
when you get the attacks, just remember, hurt people hurt people. And the
Mhm.
attack may not even be about you, but it's triggered because something good and impactful is coming at you. And maybe it's speaking to their heart, and maybe it's drawing that out. And they needed to hear that. And ooh, out it comes.
I really hope I hope that's how it works, because otherwise what we're doing is a waste of time. No.
Listen, you're going to make impact, good or bad, and it doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
We're here. You have a purpose. You have a purpose with your podcast. You are going to reach people in a very different way than I would on my podcast.
Yeah.
You have an avenue that is different than mine. And listen, we are empowering, impactful women.
Mhm.
You have a life that you have lived through. It's your story. It's
Mhm.
your testimony, and you have this opportunity to just connect with people around you. And so this is a great thing. I love it. And it's
I
the same.
wanted Thank you. I wanted to say too, like something you said earlier about how I'm not going to change. I'm still going to be me. And I think a lot of people struggle with knowing who they are. They don't know that's why they can't stand strong and be me,
Yes.
because a lot of people, I don't know who I am. I don't know who me is, you know?
Right.
And I think like it takes doing the work to figure out who you are. And like for me, what I did is I did a personal constitution. I wrote down
I
what
love that.
kind of person I want to be and
Hmm.
what kind of values I want to live by. And then I read it every day. And now I have the thing, memorized. And so every time I'm in a situation where I don't know what to do, I can actually go back and look at it. And because of what my values are, it will often give me the answer that I'm looking for.
I love that. I really
Mhm.
love that. And I think that is a tool that when you put up your podcast and you drop your links in it, put it out there. Let
Yeah.
people know that show them how to write one. I mean,
Yeah.
this is impacting. I want to do this. I myself, years ago when I was going through a separation, I used to put up scriptures that were just encouraging, just a positive input into my life, just a lot of life principles, dealing with people. And one of the other things I wanted to say about dealing with the haters is I choose to not engage because the more you comment back, the more you put wood on the fire, the bigger the flames.
Mhm.
Okay. And every time I commented on anything negative, oh, you just get even more haters on there. So I
Mhm.
stopped. And I rarely ever engage in that kind of stuff. And I don't even like it when people tag me in those posts. I will not comment. I will not like, because it's not my bonfire and I'm not giving you wood to put on the fire.
Yeah, don't drag me into your drama.
Right? Where there's no wood, the
You
fire
know,
goes
sometimes I'll
out.
actually heart a hateful comment and say, "Thank you for your feedback."
And that's awesome. That is really awesome, because you know what? You take that and you put it into a positive place. It's
Mhm.
good. And sometimes, I'm not saying that all negative comments are bad.
No.
Actually, some are very good for feedback. Like this past week, I've been dealing with a negative, huge rant. It's just absolutely negative behind the scenes. And somebody screenshot me the whole conversation. And these are people I thought were friends. Okay.
That's painful.
Yeah, it can be until you realize who your friends are. And I screenshot each one of those people on my friends list, the screenshot that had their comments in it. And I very politely said, "I'm really disappointed to see this." And and to a few others, I actually voice messaged them and I said, "It's a terrible thing that this is happening, but you have no idea the struggles that I'm facing in my life. And for me to be taking specific people out of my Facebook friends list is for my peace, my healing, and my journey. I cannot have negative noise in my life that is meant to destroy and tear me down just because you don't like what I'm doing. That's
Mhm.
not my place, it's their place." And so one of the ladies actually messaged me back, and she was really disappointed in me for not engaging in conversation. Well, I just told you why, because I'm not going to keep responding back and putting the log on the fire. The
Mhm.
fire needs to go out, and y'all need to stop and take a step back.
Some
'Cause
people like arguing.
yeah, it's perpetuating gossip, and now there's just all sorts of gross stories on there that aren't even true,
Mhm.
and I'm not talking to those people, and they're upset. But hey, I had to do it for my own mental health and wellness, and if you're not part of that healing journey for me, you're not part of that healing journey for me. You're not making a good impact into my life, and I am not going to surround myself with that negativity, and that's what I've been dealing with this week. And I'm healing right now. I'm going through a lot behind the scenes that I'm not putting out there. Everybody doesn't need to know, but I've had a lot of physical health issues happening over the past year, and trying to manage that and get myself back up. And menopause hit, and oh my gosh,
Well, I know the feeling.
menopause, my hormones are
I know.
raging, you know. And anyway, that's just what I've been under this past week. And I'm just gonna continue to go out there on that boardwalk, walk and talk, and just keep being positive and not allowing it to drag me down. And that lady came back and she said, "Wow." She said, "Thank you for sharing. I had no idea." Well, all of those people that are over there on that comment have no idea, because
Mhm.
I'm not sharing it with people that
Mhm.
aren't safe space for me.
Yeah. Good for you.
And yeah,
Good for you.
call me what you want. Think that's what you want of me. I'm not who you say I am. I know who I am. And
Yeah,
it's not your perspective of me.
it's true. So I know that we don't have much time left, but I really want to. I keep forgetting to ask you this. You said that that church really changed your life for you,
Mhm.
and I've had a couple of different spiritual awakenings.
Mhm.
My first one was reading the Christian Bible uh,
Awesome.
when I was pregnant with my daughter. So I
Mhm.
have some very similar life shit with you. So I would love to sit with
Cool.
you sometime and have another conversation after this. We have to do this again.
Why
Uh,
not?
but um, where was I going with this? Uh,
Church, the Bible.
Church, the Bible. Oh yes. What was your like? What made church like really speak to you? What made you like really love church? Like, because I've gone to churches and I'm like, this is boring. Or I've had, obviously some people, and probably if you've been to church for years, you've probably had some bad experiences at church too.
Mhm.
But I'm just curious, what about church really like made you make this huge change or embrace it so fully? And what about church makes you feel like it's drives you? or your spirituality or something like that?
Well, the first thing that happened to me is my addictions. I left them at the door. And, living like from the time I was 17 till the time I was 26, cocaine, booze, smoking, lascivious living, that kind of thing. And because I'd grown up in the church, I had a seeking in my heart that, I'm just not going down a good path. And I found the church in New Westminster, and yeah, very, very rigid guidelines. They're very biblically standard, and which is one of the struggles that my girls had. And like the ladies don't wear pants, they don't cut their hair, there's no makeup,
Mhm.
no jewelry, and I'm all of those things right now. you
Clearly,
know,
that didn't
and
last forever.
yeah, I have church girl pictures. I lived the lifestyle. I
Mhm.
loved it. I love being a Sunday school teacher. I love being an outreach person. We do homeless ministry downtown Pigeon Park. I was there every Saturday with bags and bags of clothing. I cooked huge, huge pots of food. My kids have done street outreach with us, and I was part of the choir. I taught Bible study, and that's where I got all of my leadership from. And I just love the lifestyle. But
Mhm.
2020 changed everything for me when everything shut down.
Oh,
And I was going through separation and divorce at the time. And in the most vulnerable time of my life, they
yeah.
were there for me. And one of the things that has actually kept me strong and to this day is just because I actually graduated from Bible college. It took me 5 years, but I did it. Is putting the word of God, the most positive, impacting, life-changing words you can, deep in your heart, so that on the times that things are rough, I can go to the rock of my salvation. I'm not standing alone. I have a helper. I have this comforter. I have the strength. The word is living. And as long as I'm speaking it, it's alive in me. And that's what's kept me. You have a sound mind. And I have a sound mind. Call me crazy, but I'm not. I am very grounded, very rooted. And that is what has kept me from for all of these years. And in even more so the past 4 years. I'm not alone. It feels like it sometimes, but I have hope. And I have these integral moral principles that help guide me through life. And I'm not a perfectly innocent person. I've
Mhm.
done things that I know I shouldn't have. And it's a process, and remembering I don't have to walk in condemnation.
Mhm.
I have this grace and mercy that surrounds me every day, and that gets me through.
That's so beautiful. I love that. I'm glad I asked you that. I definitely want to have another podcast with you sometime.
Oh,
Thank
for
you
sure. Yes.
so much for hanging out with me today. And I look forward to speaking to you again. And
Awesome. I would love that.
awesome.
No problem. Anytime. Let me know. I'm there.
I'm Annie Temple, the erotic entrepreneur. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.